Hi, David here, and welcome back to the channel, looking at mediumship and life in spirit through the automatic writings of the early 20th century medium James Padgett. In video 2.1, we looked at a message James received from his old law professor, Joseph Salyards. In that message, Joseph Salyards was very clear that what he called divine love was the thing that had enabled him to progress to the state of happiness that he now enjoys in spirit. He was also very clear that this is some way beyond the state of what he called comparative happiness that his own intellectual and moral qualities had led to. Yet that message didn't tell us much as to exactly what Joseph Salyards meant by divine love, and how it is that someone shares in it. So I thought we might look at a couple of messages from Helen and John Padgett, James's parents, that might shed some light on this. These messages were given to James on December 30th, 1914, so just 12 days after the message from Joseph Salyards. In the writing of the messages, James Padgett was supported by his friend Dr. Leslie Stone, who was also interested in discussing the content of the messages James received, and this helped both of them understand the material they were being given. Sometimes their thoughts would be corrected, which is a reminder for us that nothing in this world is hidden from people in spirit. In the following message from James's wife Helen, she speaks about Dr. Stone, saying, "I am here, Helen. Dr. Stone is a different man. He has considerable spiritual development and is an earnest seeker of the higher things of the spirit world, and has had considerable experience in these matters. He is not right when he ascribes the inflowing of God's love to any vibrations of spiritual forces other than the pure and only love of God. His love is not a mere vibration, but an actual existing love, which has its source only in the fountainhead of his love. No other force or love enters into it, only pure and everlasting love, which emanates from the Father. So tell Dr. Stone that he must believe that God is an infinite, actual being who loves him as a father and not as some mere vibratory love or power moving through the universe, without a fixed and predetermined plan for the happiness of mankind. I hope he will soon see that if he wishes to obtain the greatest happiness on earth as well as in the heavens, he will come to believe that God is his real personal Father, with all the love that a father, the only one, can have for his child. He can obtain the happiness resulting from the possession of this love only by prayer to the Father and belief in the actual existence of the Father, and his desire to bestow this love in answer to such prayer. He must let this love of God into his soul and believe that it is there. When he gets it, though, he will know it, and he will not need any further proof than the happiness that will come to him by its mere possession. Tell him to pray for its inflowing, and not wait until he can understand how such a thing can be, and he will get it. Helen goes on to say that the reason she is giving James this message about Dr. Stone is because she can see that he is on the verge of accepting the truth of what she is saying. But I suspect, like most of us, he is trying to understand what she is saying before acting on it. It's natural that we struggle to accept things that we don't understand. Although Helen talks about the need for belief, it's clear from other messages that she is not talking about mere mental belief as making the difference. What she's trying to do is to get Dr. Stone to accept and trust that God's love is a real thing, an actual force or energy that is present and active in the universe, and that it is there for the asking. Prayer, as Helen calls it. She promises that Dr. Stone will know the reality of God's love once he has it, and that he will be aware of the change in himself, but that no matter how long and hard he thinks about it, he cannot be aware of it before he has it. In this message, Helen sets out an explanation that ties in very nicely with last Sunday's video, 10.1, on the importance of divine love. I'll include a link to that video at the end of this one, and in the video description below. The other message I wanted to look at today is from John Padgett, James's father, which was given on the same evening as the one from Helen that we've just been looking at. We looked at part of this message back in video 1.9, but it's worth looking at it again in the light of what Helen has said. In this message, John Padgett tells his son about some of the work that people in spirit do with others in spirit, trying to get across this knowledge of divine love. Few people learn about divine love during their earthly lives, so have no knowledge of it when they pass to spirit. John Padgett tells James that as to attempting to awaken a spirit to a conception of the love of God that is waiting for it, all spirits may do this, and when a spirit succeeds in causing a darkened or blinded spirit to feel or realise that God's love is waiting for it, then the spirit who has caused that awakening is most happy. Of course, it is only the spirit who has had that awakening himself who can cause or lead another spirit to that desire for spiritual enlightenment that will finally cause it to get this love to his full and complete happiness. So again, John Padgett is making the point that this is not a convincing message unless it comes from someone who shares in divine love, because you don't know what it feels like to have it until you have it. You don't know the difference it makes or how it changes your awareness. Is this not true of all experience? Do we know what it is like to swim swiftly and confidently through water until we have done it? And how do we get to that point? We take instruction from someone who has done it before us. At this point in the message from his father, James asks after his old law partner, Anthony G. Riddle, who has passed to spirit. His father replies, yes, he is becoming more in condition to receive this love and believe in what your mother tells him. She is the one who is trying to show him the way more than anyone else. He seems to have a great confidence in her and in her love. He is also progressing very fast, and I expect that he will soon be with me in this sphere. So you see that we are all doing well in the way of progressing, and your prayers help us very much. That's an interesting point about the prayers of someone in the earth life helping people in spirit. It's something I've seen mentioned many times, that our thoughts do have an effect upon the people in spirit they are directed to. So don't leave people out of your prayers or your thoughts just because they are no longer living their life in this world. You can still make a difference to them. So carry on remembering those special days that connect with people in spirit. If you want to send them flowers, you can do it by thought. No need to go to a florist. At this point in the message, James Padgett asks after someone he knew by the name of Taggart, who passed to spirit by his own hand. John Padgett replies, I have seen him very recently, and he is in the same condition as when I wrote to you first about him. He does not seem to realise that he needs any assistance to help him to become happier or to progress to a better condition, and it is difficult to convince him. I tried several times, but he said that I was mistaken in what I told him, and that he knew that he was just where it was intended that he should be. So I have not tried lately. Needless to say, Taggart is not in a good place. He's passed to spirit and is convinced that where he has ended up is where he is meant to be, and that's that. Too many people pass to spirit, having been told that where they end up is a final judgment upon them that lasts forevermore. James Padgett then asks after another acquaintance in spirit by the name of Mackie. At this point, John Padgett brings in both Mackie and Taggart, and although he doesn't let them communicate directly with James, he does pass on what they want to say. There then follows a wonderful conversation between Mackie and Padgett, in which he tries to convince Mackie of the teaching of divine love. James makes some progress, but his father tells him that Mackie's response is, he says that what you say may be all true, but the difficulty is that he can't understand, and therefore can't believe. Well, Mackie and many others, I suspect. Where it gets interesting is that Mackie is eventually persuaded to try to gain the divine love that James Padgett speaks of through prayer, with, as Mackie puts it, all my strength and desire, if what Padgett says is true. He then reports feeling some strong sensation, enough at least to encourage him to keep up the effort and to promise Padgett that he will continue to do so. All this time, Taggart has been listening in to this conversation, but tells James Padgett that he remains unconvinced. He admits the logic of James's position, but says, how am I to do that in which I have no faith? And it's a fair question. How is he to be expected to act upon something he is told if he has difficulty accepting that it is true or real? Anyway, eventually James persuades Taggart as well to try it as an experiment, to which Taggart agrees, expressing his thanks if what Padgett has said turns out to be true. The message ends with this final word from John Padgett. Yes, you certainly did give the gentlemen a struggle to get away from what you said to them, and I believe that you have impressed them to such a degree that they will be led to learn the truth. You are tired and must stop. Your father, John H. Padgett. I think that's a fascinating example of the kind of work that people in spirit are doing all the time to try and help those whose spiritual development is less than their own. What's different here, of course, is that we get to see a collaboration between John and James Padgett, possible through James's mediumship, his automatic writing, which also lets us see that people in spirit sometimes still pay more attention to what they are told by people in this world than to what they are told by more highly developed spirits. The old idea of eternal judgment is often the thing that holds people back, whereas the simple truth is that as the person changes, the judgment changes accordingly. No one walking the earth is the same person they were 10 years ago. So why expect people in spirit to be frozen in time? This goes against all our experience. So why have this expectation? What's even more fascinating in this message from John Padgett is that we also get to see an example of someone in spirit being persuaded to pray to God for divine love and experiencing something unusual when he does that, something that he did not expect. There's a lesson there, not only for people in spirit, but also for those of us in this world. You do not need to wait until you pass to spirit in order to share in divine love. Whichever side of life you're on, you can do it now. Please do take that on board and act on it. I understand that we all act upon knowledge in our own time, so do let the idea of divine love sit with you and become familiar. The videos in Series 10 will help increase your understanding of divine love, along with the future Series 11 and 12 I have planned. Our next video in this series, Series 2, will look at another couple of messages to James from people in spirit whom he knew, telling him of their experiences. So I hope you'll join me for those. In the meantime, if you've enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already, as it does help the channel to get noticed. And click on the bell icon to get notifications when you check into YouTube. As always, take care meantime, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching.